Welcome to the MOGL podcast. I'm Tim Bryson, Director of Athlete Education and Compliance, and I'm the host of our show. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning community member, welcome back. As y'all know, the MOGL podcast is dedicated to educating all NIL athletes and brands on how to ensure compliance, how to maximize NIL activity, and how to make a difference in the ever-evolving NIL landscape. Today, we are back with another episode with a dope guest who I know has a lot of value, a lot of perspective and knowledge to share with us today. This guest is a first-generation lawyer and law business owner. This guest is a woman in business and a former track and field Division I college athlete. Shout out to all the track athletes listening to the pod. And this guest goes by a title that I think truly embodies what it means to be not just an educator, but really a influencer in this NIL college athletic space. So without further ado, y'all help me welcome the protector of athletes, Sivonnia DeBarros. What's poppin', homie?
Woo! What's up? I feel like I need my own audio. You know how the fans go, woo!
I mean, I thought about that. We thought about including that, yo, but that's like more production stuff that
I know
honestly,
it's too much.
I can't do it. But how you doing, yo? Good to see you.
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for reaching out to even get me on the podcast. I didn't even know MOGL had a podcast, so that's cool.
I gotta change it. I gotta do more work then. I gotta do things a little bit different. But it's funny because actually, Dr. Onion, I remember listening to your episode on Dr. Onion's Bloom podcast probably 3 years ago, almost.
Was it? I can't remember. I know it was a long time ago.
Yeah, but I remember, so it's dope watching it come full circle and get you on this podcast to talk more about you for sure.
Yeah, I gotta go back and listen to it now.
Yeah, it was good.
It was good. When I listened to it before, it was good. But now I'm like, I need to go back and review that podcast.
Nah, for sure, yo. Well, we're on another podcast, and similar to Dr. Onion's Bloom pod, this podcast is broken up into 3 parts. The first of which is really focused on storytelling, right, on purpose. And so we're not going to go further in this conversation without first, Sivonnia, asking you, what is your story?
Man, well, it's so much, all different ways. But let me see what might support your listeners a little bit better. Well, a lot of people know me as protector of athletes. Not many people know that I'm a licensed lawyer. And so I wanted to be an attorney for as long as I can remember without knowing exactly what it meant. But that's why I always try to educate athletes in their village on authenticity, being yourself, following your dreams, because we all tend to have our own unique gifts. And it's later in life that we start recognizing, oh, that's why I have this gift, because I can do this. And it seemed like no one else can do it. So that's part of my story. I am the eldest of 4 kids. I have ran track for a very long time, but I've been in all types of sports. Don't ask me to play basketball because I cannot play basketball at all. I'll leave that up to my little sister. I remember I shot a goal for the opposing team. I thought I was doing something too. My teammates were so mad at me. They're like, you shot the goal for the other team, because I didn't know that they switched sides after that time.
That's wild. That's actually wild. How old were you? Like 6?
No, I wasn't 6. I had to be bigger. I probably was like maybe 9 or 10.
Oh yeah, that's too old.
Yeah,
you can't be doing that. Yeah, you can't be doing that.
I told my mom, do not put me in basketball again. This is not my sport. This is not my sport. But I played everything, literally. Yeah.
And what events in track?
Oh, so high school, almost everything. I was the team captain my senior year, which I didn't know until my coach crowned me with that in terms of a trophy. In college, I focused on the 200, and then my coach made me run the 400. So you can say the 200 in the open 4. Hated the open 4, but he made me do it for conditioning.
For sure. So as you think back, this is not off script, but definitely related. But as you look back to your undergraduate career in particular, anything, if at all, you would have done differently to prepare for life after competition as an undergraduate?
Yes. I've always been the type of person where I had my funnel or my tunnel, and that's what I did. Like, it had to line up. I've always been a planner. I've always planned my life. I knew what I wanted to become, and I always researched the steps that I would get there. But the thing I did not plan or prepare for were a lot of the relationships on the outside of that tunnel vision. So the people that I connected myself with or was able to kind of build certain relationships, they were more of the directors at the school or my professors and not necessarily my peers.
Mm-hmm.
So later, after transitioning from college athletics, now here I am trying to rebuild those relationships. And I won't even say rebuild them, but going back to those people to truly cultivate relationships. Now, I did have a few friends, because I don't know, I've just never been like a group type of person. When I connect with people, I just really connect with them. I've never been the one where I got to have 15 people around me to feel secure, to feel like I have a friend. So I did leave college with some really good friendships, but when I look back on it, I realized, wow, I left a lot of relationships on the table that could have been, hitting right now. So it's almost kind of like going back to the drawing board when you realize that stuff. So I would say, don't be so tunnel vision that you forget to build and cultivate relationships with other people, because they definitely could be the key to your next level.
It's good. That's really good. That's really, really good. We starting off early. And then before we move to segment 2, right? Environments matter. Environments definitely matter. And your undergraduate in particular, South Florida, shout out to the Bulls. I don't know how you got to Chicago, but we'll talk about Chicago in a second.
Oh my God.
But how did you get to USF? Were you recruited? Did you walk on? Are you from Florida? Like, what was it?
So a lot of those things. I'm from Florida. I walked on. My journey is a little different from other people. A lot of people don't know my backstory, and I'm building up that courage muscle to share more insight about who I am and what got me to where I am. But I'm also the product of a divorced family. And I grew up basically with my mom, and then at some point I went and lived with my grandmother. And my senior year of high school, I lived by myself. Like, I was paying bills and everything. Yes, I was still competing. Going into high school, I was competitive cheerleader. During high school, I competed on the track and field team. We went everywhere. And so my track coach, who I still talk to today, his daughter was on my team. I remember him coming to me and telling me that there were several schools that were interested in me running for them. I don't remember what happened with it. All I know is either the opportunity or the offers ended up going away. And there were some situations where my biological dad, he was involved. He didn't want to sign any scholarship papers, like anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so messed up. And I'm not on here to try to dog him or anything, but I truly believe that sometimes, even though we want something to be a certain way, God has a specific plan for each and every one of us. And although it may not work out, the path toward the journey that we believe or the end goal that we believe we deserve, sometimes the journey to it may not be the best. But along that journey, if you show up, you do what you got to do, you are authentically you, right? It builds a completely different type of character that the next person, they might not even be able to handle a small percentage of the stuff that you go through. So was I pissed off? Absolutely. But I've always been of the mindset that I don't want to waste time. So even in that gap, and having a parent who did not want to sign my school papers, scholarship papers, anything, I decided to go to cosmetology school while all of that got sorted out, because it wasted so much time. So a lot of people don't even know that I went to cosmetology school, which was supposed to be the first semester of college for me. I went to cosmetology school because I didn't want to waste time. Then I got into college. I walked on at USF. I was competing in track and field, and I was also taking 16 to 18 credit hour course loads. I was a political science major. I spent so much time in the athletic department, and that's probably why I built so many good relationships with the athletic directors.
That makes
and
sense.
my
That
coaches.
makes sense.
Right. But my journey there was not easy. It was not easy. And then on top of that, we had a main coach at the time who was, which I felt at the time was very racist, and showed a lot of favoritism. I didn't know until years later, to be exact, in December, one of my teammates, I didn't even know this girl because I was so tunnel vision. But by the grace of God, we ended up coming back together. We had always ran into this parallel to each other, knowing the exact same people, loved the exact same coaches. And she confirmed for me, like, yeah, that coach had some major issues, but I never knew her because I was so tunnel vision until now. So at the end of the day, my journey has been difficult. And sometimes I have looked around and said, well, God, why do I have to go through all this? Why can it not be easier for me? But sometimes I won't even say sometimes, even when the going gets rough, you were specifically designed for what you're going through. And what you're going through is going to help you to build the capacity and the stamina to be able to get through the next trials and tribulations that come along the way, because they're not going to get easier. They might not look the same, but they're not going to get easier. And so when you are able to build that capacity, to build that mental, emotional, spiritual, fortitude, you are really on a journey that is, your next level is just waiting for you. It's just, can you get out of your own way and appreciate where you are and to say, thank you, God, anyway, right? So now when you get where you're supposed to be and where he really wants you to be, you'll be full of gratitude.
I don't know if you're talking to the community, you're talking to me. You said you are specifically designed for what you are going through, yo. Segment 2, that's a great transition to segment 2, because again, for those that know you, they at least know, that you go by Protector of Athletes as one of your names. But for those who may not know or be aware, explain why. Like, where did that come from?
Protector of Athletes?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how the name came about, because I wrote my first book during the pandemic, What Are You Sporting About? I wrote What Are You Sporting About during the pandemic. And I was just like, I'm out here trying to protect athletes, because I'm personally tired of seeing the exact same stories and stereotypes being played over and over and over again about athletes. And unfortunately, the majority of them are about us. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I'm like, what can I do to support athletes of any level, and especially professionals who retire and have no idea what to do because they've allowed a sport or the idea of something to, or in their identity, to get wrapped up in a particular title that they forgot to take care of them. They forgot mm-hmm. to take care of home. They forgot to steward the gift that they were born with, And so I just started saying, look, I'm a protector of athletes. And the name just caught on. And I registered that bad boy. It is trademarked.
At what point?
So that's kind of how the name came.
At what point did you trademark it?
When did I trademark? I have to look at the application. Could have been last year.
Oh yeah, so you weren't playing around.
Probably was last year, yeah.
So you wrote the book, 2020, 2021, right? 2020. And then I mean, soon after, you really been full speed in regards to creating educational programming, content, webinars, etc., to get educate athletes and to protect, particularly the NIL. Mm-hmm. How are you doing this? Like, why was it so important for you to do alongside still running your practice at the same time, my friend? And as someone who's been in school right now and working full time, like,
it's hard.
Ain't but so many hours in a day to do both. So why was it so important?
You're right. And you know what? I'm kind of wired that way, because going back to what I just told you before, athlete 16 to 18 credit hours, and I passed my classes really well. I have a Big East Conference certificate on my wall framed right now for academic all-star student athlete for the Big East Conference.
Oh, you weren't playing around, no.
Yeah. So it's kind of my nature, but the way I try to serve athletes, and I have a copy on my desk right now. So right after I wrote What Are You Sporting About, because I was trying to make sure I did not muddle the messaging between What Are You Sporting About and the athletes making moves. So I had to make sure that I identified the individuals who were already at a point of trying to figure out why they're constantly being victimized in certain ways, right? So that's kind of what Are You Sporting About deals with, like taking them back to the drawing board. Who were you when you were born? Who were you at 4, 5, and 6 years old when you weren't afraid to say out loud what it is that you wanted to become, right? So taking them back through that journey was extremely important to help them get on the right level to being a successful entrepreneur, business owner, investor, and then I immediately started writing Athletes Making Moves because I knew I was already ahead of the game for name, image, and likeness. People weren't really thinking about it. A lot of folks were saying, oh, it's not going to happen. It's too much. Athletes can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And California had already passed their laws. And there was a senator here in Illinois that was kind of making a little bit of fuss about it, but it wasn't much that was happening. But I knew I needed to be at the forefront to not just blow smoke up athletes' behinds around, oh, you can make fast money on social media. You can do this and you can do this. And here's all the money you're going to get. But guess what people aren't talking about, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about. Their intellectual property. How are you going to protect it? Period. How are you going to protect it? And if your entire purpose behind going pro is to create financial stability and financial wealth, and you don't do anything to protect it from the jump, you might as well have stayed home. So that's why I knew I needed to write Athletes Making Moves. And that's why I've continued to try and create opportunities like the NIL Combine to educate athletes and their village. The NIL is not a concept that is only germane to collegiate sports. It is a concept that people have been utilizing for years and years and years. Eisenhower even sued somebody before about his name and his likeness. It's called publicity, right? Publicity, so there's so many different ways that we can protect our interests. And I am of the mind that if I have to do it, and if I got to do it alone, I'm going to do what I need to do, because we need to have multiple generations of individuals who are not just looking at how much money I can make, but understanding how can I monetize, leverage, and protect, not just for me, but for the generations that come after me.
So it's interesting you said this, because monetize, leverage, and protect. I'm gonna come back to that. I gotta write that down. But it's interesting you say that, right? Because it's what's today? We're recording on February 3rd for those who are listening. Shout out to Black History Month.
Shout out Black History.
Yeah, we got a few more months to celebrate too. But nevertheless, right, we've seen the tweets, and they resurfaced, at least on my Twitter timeline. And that, right, if your Black kid is old enough to experience racism, and your white kid is old enough to learn about it. In a similar way, NIL, right? If our athletes are old enough to monetize the NIL, it's not too early to teach about intellectual property.
Correct.
And rights publicity, right? But I think the reason why this is important to me, and why you said, monetize, leverage, and protect your NIL in particular, right? Is because, again, most people, and I'm gonna call it out, particularly white educators, only talk about the monetization piece, right?
Correct.
The quick money, the marketplace, get it fast. I got to worry about it, et cetera. But this leverage and this protection is huge, but I also think it's tied to our identity, particularly as Black people, right? And having to protect and own what we are, who we are, given the history of this country, really the world, right? And so I've asked everyone about this. I even gone to Twitter and shared my thoughts. I have more to say for sure. But for me, it's super important to have diverse and really diverse racial and ethnic representation in the education space. And so for you, right, as someone I believe identifies as a Black woman, like, what have you experienced as an educator in the space? Let me start there. And be honest, please.
Oh, I will.
Thank you. But then too, what do you want to see more of? What do you need to see more of? Because similar as you said, you'll be the, if it's only you, are you gonna do it, right? I'm the same vibe. Like, if it's only me, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen straight up.
Yeah.
No, but as a Black woman, like, what's been your experience in NIL educator space? Because I can't speak to it. I can speak to only my own.
My experience is when you have something that is golden and it is from your heart, it is purpose driven, and you are out there to serve the masses for a better life, for their benefit. Other people who don't look like you, who have more connections, who have more individuals who are willing to finance their projects versus yours, will try to push you out of the market. Look, I ain't new to this, I'm true to this. Everybody else might start something to have these big old conferences and everything like that, but guess what? You ain't got me there, so you ain't doing nothing. And that I'm not being arrogant, I'm just being honest, because there's a huge gap in the conversations that are happening. And going to your point, yeah, it's easier to pull us in as a Black and brown community and say, oh, you can make X amount of dollars, because guess what? We are hundreds and hundreds of years behind on how to actually duplicate those dollars, right? We are not given the same benefits and access to resources and education and information as they are, so that we understand how we can actually leverage what we have so it never runs out. Most of us don't even know who our third, fourth, fifth great grandfather was, right? But ask your counterpart, because they do. Yep. So some of the things that I've experienced is, oh, well, we don't have the budget for you. Oh, well, we're already working with X company. Oh, well, let me check and see. At the end of the day, if we're all here for the common good of the athlete, and not just for them as student athletes while they're in college, but for the person themselves and what their life could be and look like when they do transition from college sports, professional sports, or otherwise, why can't we all work together? So, it's yeah, shout out to Black history, because there's a lot of us that are out here that are doing things and not getting the credit for what we really do. We are essentially making history. But it's going to take a lot for everybody else to get on board, to recognize that you don't have to shut out the Black side, especially when you're trying to also monetize from the Black side.
Come on now. Come on.
So,
come on.
Yeah.
Come on. One of the ways that you are choosing to educate, right? I want to make sure that we highlight both of these pieces here. It's your second book, right? Athletes Making Moves.
You read it?
Right? Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. But you mentioned, right, you want to be deliberate in delineating between book number 1 and book number 2.
Yes.
So for what you are able to share, particularly within this moment during this conversation, what is Athletes Making Moves? Who's it for? Talk to us.
Yeah, Athletes Making Moves is for the student athlete, or what I would say the athlete entrepreneur. So if you know that you want to take advantage of NIL opportunities, whether it's now while you're in college or after, you should be reading this book. In the beginning of the book, I go through the historical issues of name, image, and likeness, NCAA rules, and all of that, and kind of how we've gotten to where we are. But outside of that, also recognizing there's a framework that I put inside the book to prepare people. So if people don't even read that first chapter, you ain't gonna get the rest, because it's priming you and setting you up to see if you can shift your mindset, if you can create accountability to do what you need to do, and if you are going to take the moment to educate yourself with the content that is inside this book, right? Yep. So I even start there. Like, that's the setup. That is a complete setup. So that's part of my framework. Have your say, not SAY, but SAE, shifting your mindset for success, achieving through accountability, and excelling with education. But throughout the book, I provide different nuggets on intellectual property, case studies like Leonard Kwahi, I think that's how you pronounce his name. And, because when he tried to leave Nike, he couldn't take his logo with him. So I did a case study on that. I provided information around estate planning. Most athletes, especially young athletes, they're not thinking about a will or, you know what I'm saying, or power of attorney. They're not thinking about anything. But look at the young man that collapsed during the game. I cannot remember his name right now, but young, what was it?
Damar Hamlin.
Hamlin, there we go. Hamlin, collapsed out of nowhere. When I was running track for USF, I would never forget, and I don't know this guy's name. I'm horrible with names, so y'all gotta forgive me. I'm like super bad with names, but I can remember the important stuff. This guy, football athlete, extremely healthy from what we knew and understood, collapsed in the weight room and he died. This was at USF. Okay. I will never forget it because it was crazy. He was fine one day and he wasn't the next. So if you're out here monetizing NIL, you have to think long-term about what are the assets that you're creating from your name, image, and or likeness. Who has the benefit of that? Who has the ability to make important decisions on your behalf if you are no longer able to do it, even if you are still here, above ground? So those are things we need to really be thinking about. But I also break down like some of the important provisions of a contract. So here in Illinois, our statute says that a student athlete, if they are going to monetize through NIL, basically their right of publicity, then if there's a value over $500, it has to be in writing. And I can tell you there's statutes around the sale of goods, the value of 500, and it will be required to do that. But if you don't know what a contract really is and how to protect yourself and how to even leverage the contract for your benefit, you're going to be lost and people are going to take advantage of you. It's nothing new that we've been seeing and dealing with, but honestly, when it comes to this, people just, they turn tone deaf. So that is in there, building teams and relationships. It's so much in this book, but even in my Black book, which is the special edition, I'm not just giving athletes information of all the things they can do to monetize their name, image, and likeness and how they can protect it, but now there's samples. So most of the statutes that I've seen, you have to, report any representation or potential NIL deal to your school. Guess what? There's a sample letter in there for that. There's a sample pitch. So if you want to pitch somebody, just because a brand hasn't approached you, don't mean that you can't get your own deal. You can pitch them. What you eat every day, what you drink every day, what shoes you wear, where do you like to buy your backpacks from or your pencils or whatever. You can pitch them, right? Especially if you already have a relationship with the brand, being that you've been their customer for however many years. There's a lot in that book. I would urge any athlete, and I'm going to go as far to say any individual who wants to monetize their own intellectual property, i.e. name, image, and or likeness, they should have that book, because it's not just about NIL in college sports. It's about how you can leverage it once you leave college as well.
It's good. It's a finesse for sure. It's a finesse. I don't know. Like I said, I think we're in this time right now where like it's really going to be, I mean, you have examples in there already, which is in templates, which is great for the current athlete in person, if you will.
Right.
But what year is 23? So maybe 2025, we'll have a cohort of athletes that have graduated through this NIL era and maybe able to look back with some more truth in regards to what their experience was in college, right? But I feel like a lot of what you're saying and what I believe I'm saying and have said, we're going to look, I'm like, I told y'all that 3 years ago. I literally told you, I gave you the template. I literally told you that.
Yep.
But in a similar way, the NIL Combine is another I told you so moment, yo.
Listen, we did our first one, the NIL Combine, first annual event. We did it last year. The first event itself was the Athletes Making Moves book launch. So it was a little lighter on the education, but last year, man, we had over 30 speakers and we tackled issues like caring for the total athlete. So not, when you think about what that means, not just how can I play in the next game, you know? What about the full aspect of who you are? We tackle marketing for the athlete, legal protection, branding, creating a niche. So think about the talents that you have. Going back to what I said earlier, we're all gifted with our own unique gifts. You might have a talent that the next person doesn't have. Just being an athlete ain't it. That ain't everything. So, and if I'm going to be real, like brands are not looking for the generic part of, oh, I'm an athlete, so you should sign me on a deal. No, they're looking for athletes who have a different secret sauce, that can really set them apart from everybody else. That's why I was so excited to see the young athlete that was a painter. Completely different. There's a young lady, and I don't know what school she goes to, but I think she got a record deal. Oh, yeah. She was a rapper.
LSU, yeah.
Yeah, LSU, there you go. So yeah, it's so many different things that we can do. And NIL Combine, the way that we provided that information and the subject matters that we provide, we're not glossing over anything. We're going to tell y'all what you need to know. And there's a lot of events and individuals and people, they're going to give you the surface level info. We don't do that. You come to NIL Combine, we dive in deep. Be ready to take action steps, which is something that I absolutely loved about our event specifically, because it's one thing to give people information and talk to them. It's another thing for them to understand the information and automatically implement it, because we want it to be just like muscle memory, right? You get you hear the information, now you're practicing it. And when you leave us, you're able to constantly work on whatever that issue is. So, but yeah, we talked about so many things, and I'm excited for this year because we're gonna do it live, and we got our topics pretty much lined up. But I want to dive deep into like the metaverse. One thing I will be doing specifically is helping athletes to understand trademarking and what they can trademark to protect their brands. But even when you trademark, you can use that as a leveraging tool. You can even increase your prices because it's trademark, because you would be the only one to have that brand, typically. But a lot of people don't know that they can or how to trademark NFTs and metaverse and all those things. So yeah, that's one of our newer pieces that we're going to add for 2023, along with some other stuff.
No, yeah, don't tell us too much. Don't tell us.
Right, gotta sprinkle a little bit.
Hey, look, don't tell us too much. Segment 3, yo. 3 things you want our audience to remember and leave with after our conversation together, right? This definitely been an intro. I would say the intro call, if you will. Definitely one has been exploratory in a lot of ways, but definitely explicit and deliberate in regards to what we mean, what we said, but also where we believe education and protection needs to go. But as we leave today, 3 things you want our audience members to remember and leave with.
First thing is to go back to the drawing board and figure out who you are as an individual. What makes you uniquely you? Not the titles, not the people who are around you, not the entourages and all that bull crap. Like, what makes you you? Secondly, how willing are you to work for what you want? That means that you have to be accountable to yourself as well. Are you going to do what is necessary to make the reality that you want an actual reality? And the last thing I would say is, don't just automatically jump on something or someone because it seems to be nice and shiny and all of that. Do your research, educate yourself, ask questions, make sure that it is a right fit, make sure that it is properly aligned with you. And not that you're aligning things for the now. Sometimes we got to think greater than ourselves and our current situation. We need to think into the future. If you know who you are, what it is that you want, and where you are going, every relationship that you create or opportunity that you take advantage of should be properly aligned with the future you believe that you should have. So that's my 3.
You on Twitter?
I am.
I'm gonna start sending you tweets, yo, because I'm gonna start sending you tweets because there's a tweet that was about dating advice. This was probably a month ago, and it was like, yo, this whole time I'm trying to figure out, asking Shorty, who are you, blah blah blah, but I can't find out because you don't even know yourself, right? In a similar way, I don't want to mic drop our convo because I got another question to ask you, but in a similar way. We like, because again, people have said, figure out who you are, right? Telling athletes, like, identify who you are, figure out who you are, identify your passion, yada, yada, yada. We got educators in the space, particularly in the college athletic departments, who don't even know themselves.
They don't know.
How are you going to teach somebody else? Which is why they need to come see Sivonnia, my friend.
They don't know. Come on, Tim. I'm here.
Come on. They need to come talk to Sivonnia, bro. Before we jump off, yo, favorite restaurant in Chicago?
Oh my God. How would I know that? It's so many good places. Let's just say this: any place that has seafood.
That's real.
But you know what? I will say this: one of my favorite places to go is the Signature Lounge or Signature Room. It's high up in the sky, and all you see is the lights of the city. Like, all the walls are glass. It's beautiful. Now, that is my favorite place to visit.
All right. Well, next time I go there, if I don't see you, I'll see a picture of me in the lounge.
Right.
Sivonnia, it's been a pleasure, my friend. We appreciate you having you.
Thank you. This has definitely been a dope conversation. Like I said, I appreciate you for reaching out. And anytime, if you need me, call me. I'm here.
Oh, all right. Listen, I got a couple ideas already. Definitely, and I will be in touch for sure. For everyone else, though, man, yo, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of the MOGL podcast. If you did not take notes, it's not too late to run this episode back and take notes. This time, you might want to jump on YouTube and see our stylish frames on your screen because they're fire. Yours are Warby too?
No.
Oh, not yet. You probably
These
got some.
These are Vogue.
See, I don't even. No, that sound out of my price range.
It's not. I promise.
They look fire, yo. But tune in on
you.
YouTube or audio. We look forward to seeing y'all next week to have another conversation. on how we can help educate all athletes, NIL athletes and brands on how to ensure compliance, how to maximize NIL activity, and how to make a difference in the ever-evolving NIL landscape. As always, get paid, get MOGL. Peace out.